Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MetrObelisk Radio. What you're about to watch is the final part of a 3-hour collaboration that I did with Krazy Joe of the MegaPodTastic YouTube Channel and podcast via Skype, ranking the Marvel Cinematic Universe's Infinity Saga. If you have not yet watched Part 1 or Part 2, the links to those videos will be in the description below. It is highly recommended that you watch both Parts 1 and 2 before watching this. Without further delay, our number 11 is The Incredible Hulk. You rank this at 19. I rank this as my fifth best. So,
it's a pretty good movie. I do think it's one of the lesser ones, in that it seems pretty inconsequential. It never got a follow up. We don't know what happened to the leader. We don't know what happened to Abomination. They're still out there somewhere. I didn't think we would ever see any kind of follow-up to The Incredible Hulk. But then suddenly John Hurt showed up in Civil War, reprising his role as
General Ross.
Yeah, exactly. But like I said early on, this was the movie that gave us our first ever superhero crossover, because Iron Man introduced to the universe, but it wasn't until Tony Stark showed up at the end of this movie that we ever officially had a crossover, and that was the first one. It was like, yay, 2 superhero movies actually crossed over. This is historic.
And to think that could have been Batman Begins and Superman Returns, but we already went into that.
My friend Bob thinks it should have been Superman 3. Superman 3 back in 1983 came out at a time when Linda Carter's Wonder Woman TV series had just recently left the airwaves. And my friend Bob always said, why not? Why didn't they back then, when they had Linda Carter, who was just coming off Wonder Woman, was a big TV hit? Why didn't Wonder Woman show up in Superman 3? Do Superman 3 as Superman meets Wonder Woman. Get Christopher Reeve and Linda Carter together. I'm like, you know what? That's brilliant. I would have loved that. They didn't do it, but that would have been awesome.
Yeah. So getting back to The Incredible Hulk, you can't really say that this is really an origin story, because the origin story is handled all throughout the opening credits, and then it immediately cuts to Bruce Banner in Panama, 30 days since the last incident.
Right.
And that's what I really liked about it, is it didn't just retell, how he got exposed to the gamma radiation, and this is how he's trying, and it's more about, how is he trying to control the beast.
What's interesting about Incredible Hulk is the screenplay was written to be a sequel to the Hulk from 2003 with the Ang Lee Hulk with Bruce Banner. It was
you mean
Eric Bana, yeah. Who was it? Zach Penn, I believe it was Zach Penn wrote the script. Yeah. Zach Penn wrote both movies, and when he wrote The Incredible Hulk, he thought he was writing Hulk 2. In fact, I think originally he was writing Hulk 2. Then somewhere after the fact, it got turned into a reboot. So if we look, the 2003 Hulk film leaves Banner in South America, and this movie opens up with Banner in South America, because it was supposed to be a continuation. But then through a couple of rewrites, they were like, no, you know what? We're just rebooting it. We're rebooting it. So the script remained mostly the same. It got tweaked a little, and now we got the origin in the opening credits, but they changed the origin so it no longer matched what we saw in the 2003 movie, and instead was closer to what we saw on the Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno TV show.
Yeah, that's what I always liked about the Incredible Hulk. I did not like the 2003 Hulk movie personally.
It's got its moments. There's things I like about it. What really kills that movie is it really gets into this weird thing about his relationship with his father. I don't know. The thing I like most about it, and I heard people criticize this, but I thought it was cool. Ang Lee kept using split screens to simulate comic book panels. And I heard people saying that was cheesy. I thought it was visually really cool. The movie's not good, but I'm like, you know what? I like that effect. I think that's a pretty cool thing you did there. I dig that. But overall,
Yeah.
it is a movie that, I don't know, it takes itself way too seriously and goes into some like really deep places about like fathers and sons and their
Mhm.
relation. I don't know. It's a movie. It does. It's like nobody told Ang Lee, you're making a superhero movie here. That's what you're making.
Mhm.
You're getting a little too artsy here. You're going a
Yeah.
little too deep.
Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, that effect hadn't been done back in '03 with the comic book panels. Because I immediately got to thinking of Sin City, the sequel, A Dame to Kill For,
Yeah,
and they did that in a couple of areas, and that wasn't until 14 when that one released. Was
something
it
like
13 or
that.
14? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's about right because the first one was, I think, oh six, oh five or
5.
oh six, and
Yeah.
the sequel didn't come out for at least 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah, because that one they had to recast Michael Clark Duncan,
Right,
obviously.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I think the Incredible Hulk has, everything that's needed to be said is that, and one thing I like is, and I'll go back to it, that it feels like a smaller movie because it's more focused on Bruce Banner and not really the Hulk. If you
Yeah,
look at the movie, because, the Hulk, it's always, about, how long has it been between, each incident when the monster has come out. So
right,
yeah, very, very. Um, what was the opening to the original series? The whole like he's trying to like control the monster inside of him. Da
right.
da da da.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing that we didn't even mention is Ed Norton. Edward Norton
Yes.
plays Banner, and it was his one and only appearance in the role because
Mhm.
there were some
Uh,
difficulties on the set where he and the director were not, I guess, seeing eye to eye. And Marvel deemed him to be too difficult to work with, and they did not invite him back for Avengers.
yeah.
I think I like Ruffalo better. I think Ruffalo was a better Hulk, but I don't think Norton was bad. And I got to admit, I wish I could slip into the alternate dimension where Norton had gone on to play the role in the Avengers movies just to see what it would have
Yeah.
looked like.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping for that too, because obviously on the Avengers poster they don't show Bruce Banner, they just show Hulk. So it's like, oh, okay, whatever. And then Mark Ruffalo comes on screen. It's like, what? Because I really dug Ed Norton's portrayal of Bruce Banner. If I had to rank all three of them, that's was it Eric Bana was '03, then obviously Edward Norton, and then Mark Ruffalo took it over. Ed Norton is number one for me. Mark Ruffalo's is a second, and Eric Bana's dead last.
Yeah,
I can't rank the television show because I haven't watched it.
I'd probably, I think I'd put Ruffalo first, but Ed Norton,
Okay.
I thought he was good. I thought he was really good.
Okay. Yeah, so, let's go right now into our number 10. That's Captain America Winter Soldier. You ranked this at number 5. I ranked it at 17.
This is my favorite of the quote unquote solo movies, meaning not the team ups, just the solo characters. Now, yeah, I guess technically you could say, well, it is a team up because Natasha's in it, but it's not the whole Avengers altogether.
Yeah.
It is my favorite. I like the feel of we're going to do a Marvel Comics version of a political thriller, and I thought, I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, see, yeah, when you mentioned political thriller, that's my main problem with the movie because I actually felt it wasn't much of a political thriller because I saw it where, Captain America obviously came from World War II and fought Hydra, where Hydra wanted to be this massive organization that wanted to rule the world. But now Shield has become that very presence where they have presences all over the world. So why did Hydra even need to be there? And also, why would Captain America just blindly support Shield even though he fought against that very thing in the first movie back during World War II? Because I always thought it would be a lot more interesting to have Captain America fight Shield since Shield became what Hydra wanted to become. So why was Hydra even in the movie if Shield already existed and you know came brought Hydra's plans to fruition?
I don't I don't know. You put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah, sorry, but when someone told me it was a political thriller, that's the way I analyzed it. And it's like, wait a minute, if this was a genuine political thriller, it should have gone more in this direction and not the way that they went with it. I always saw it as just it was the safe political thriller because Shield good guys, Hydra bad guys.
Well, I think that's fair, but it also is the Marvel universe, so
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna want to go too dark with it. But no, I really enjoyed this one. It's probably the one I go back to the most in rewatches.
Okay. But I will say I do like Bucky Barnes as Winter Soldier in this one because at least now Captain America has a worthy adversary.
Yes. Yes.
In that sense.
And the introduction of Falcon. I really liked
Yes.
Anthony Mackie. Anthony Mackie. I thought he was really good on that in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't even mention him in Ant-Man. He was great. His scene in Ant-Man was terrific.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to add to Winter Soldier? Because I actually forgot that Zemo was even in that movie.
You know what? We should point out that it's the first one that was directed by the Russo brothers, the first Marvel movie. And the Russo brothers, little did we know at the time, they would go on to be probably some of the most important people behind the scenes in the MCU because of they followed it up with Civil War, and then they did the last two Avengers movies. But the Russo brothers, I mentioned earlier on, I'm a huge fan of the TV show Community. I love Community. And the Russo brothers had worked on Community. They were producers on the show, and they directed a lot of the early episodes. And this is the first one where we start to see the Community guest shots. Danny Pudi, who plays Abed on Community, has a guest shot as a SHIELD agent in this. Then they continued it up in Civil War, where the Dean, Jim Rash, who played Dean Pelton on Community, he shows up. That became a theme running through all their Marvel movies. Is one of the Community cast members would show up. They missed Infinity War. There's no Community cast member in Infinity War, but then they make up for it in Endgame by sticking two of them in there.
Yeah, see, I'm actually different. I actually never got into Community, so I never picked up on that.
If you get a chance, I don't know if you ever watched it. I don't know if you watched it and didn't like it or just never saw it. But
I got up through the 13th episode of season 1, and just like the humor's not for me.
That's fair enough. It's definitely quirky. So
yeah. Okay. So yeah, one last thing I want to bring up. I actually really like the way that Winter Soldier ended. Is that it didn't end with a Captain America one or Winter Soldier one. Is that Captain America just walked away from the fight?
Yeah.
And that was the first time in the MCU that we actually saw that, where there's no definitive end to that final conflict. Because Captain America's torn between do I want to destroy Bucky Barnes, my friend, who's now become the Winter Soldier, or can I redeem him?
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, ready to move on to number 9?
Sure.
Yeah. Number 9, Thor Ragnarok. I ranked it at 11. You ranked it at 10.
Oh, pretty close there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my second favorite Thor movie. I like the original better, but I really enjoy this one. Taika Waititi is a great filmmaker. I love Jojo Rabbit this year. I love his What We Do in the Shadows. So yeah, no, he's definitely. I'm glad he's doing Thor 4. I'm glad he's sticking in the Marvel Universe. I can't wait to see what he does with Star Wars. But yeah, this movie was just a blast. One thing I will say though, I often hear people say this was the movie that they changed Thor. Oh, Thor became funny. Now they decided to make Thor funny. And I have to say BS on that. Thor was always funny. If you watch that first movie, Thor's hilarious. Walking into the pet store, I need a horse. You know, we only sell dogs and cats. Give me one large enough to ride on. We're gonna throw in his coffee mug to the ground, going,
Yeah.
Another. It's like Thor's hilarious. He always was. He was funny in Avengers too. So I completely reject the notion that this was the movie that made Thor funny. Thor was always funny, but Taika Waititi is known for comedy, and this movie is pretty hysterical. So what can we say? Oh, and the team up of Thor and Hulk, they're great together. They're terrific.
Yeah. See, I always feel like that this movie would have been called something different had Marvel held the rights to Hulk, because this movie was basically just the Planet Hulk storyline.
Right.
So, you could easily throw Thor in there and just call this, Planet Hulk, and it would still be the same movie. But you were saying about comedy, I love Jeff Goldblum in this movie.
Oh, Jeff Goldblum's terrific in this.
Oh my God. Did you see the second post-credits scene at the very end?
Yeah, he's hilarious.
When he says, please leave at the pod?
Congratulations. Your revolt has gone well. I say we call this a draw.
Hi. Yeah, because what was he? Was he like the architect or something, or the creator?
What did they call him? I'm showing my ignorance to the Marvel. I'm more of a comic book wise. I always say I know DC comics like the back of my hand, and I know Marvel comics pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So what was his name? It was wasn't it like the, I can't remember, the Grandmaster or something?
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember either. Yeah, the funny part is we never mentioned Hela.
Yeah, or as I like to call her, the Killmonger the first time around.
Yeah. Yeah, no, what I love in this movie, remember the Stan Lee cameo? When he's like the hair cutter?
Yeah.
All right, just sit still.
That was pretty good. And Taika Waititi is the voice of, I always forget his name. The
that rock monster or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Korg, the Grandmaster. Yeah, Jeff Goldblum was the Grandmaster.
Yeah, I love when Thor got slammed around and Loki's up at the booth. Yes.
He's a friend from work.
Yeah, I don't think anything more needs to be said on Thor Ragnarok other than Asgard really getting destroyed.
Yeah. It's just a fun romp of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah, I do too. So coming in at number 8 on our list is Iron Man 2. You ranked this one at 12. I ranked it at 9.
Yeah, Iron Man 2. This is a movie that gets unfairly crapped on. I don't know why. I really like it. I like it better than the first one, actually, because the first one has a lot of originitis. We're in the cave, we're building the art. You got to do the origin. I get it. You got to do the origin. But by the time we get to Iron Man 2, the origin's out of the way. I think we have a much better villain in Justin Hammer. I'm a huge Sam Rockwell fan, and I thought Justin Hammer was terrific. I always hear people call Whiplash the villain. No, Whiplash was a pawn of the villain. Justin Hammer's the villain in this movie. He hires Whiplash. So, yeah, Whiplash is his henchman, basically. He's not. So when people say, oh, no, Whiplash was a weak villain. Yeah, Whiplash wasn't really the villain. Sam Rockwell was the villain, and I thought he was great. He always chews up the scenery. I really enjoy him. And one of the complaints I always heard about this was, oh, it spends too much time setting up Avengers. No, it doesn't.
No,
it doesn't. There's one scene where he and Sam Jackson discuss his file, and he says, oh, yeah, we think you're unfit for the Avengers. We don't want you. And they go over his file. That's it. That's the only setup for the Avengers that's in the entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up with Iron Man 2 because we were talking about the different phases, how, phase 1 was just building to the Avengers, and it wasn't until Thor the Dark World that built up to the Infinity Stones. So without Iron Man 2, effectively, we probably wouldn't have the Avengers with all the groundwork that's laid in this movie, because this is the introduction of the official introduction of Nick Fury, because like I said, post-credit scenes back in 2008 really weren't a thing.
Right.
And this is also the first appearance of Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, this introduced Rhodey to being a War Machine later on.
Yeah, and the first appearance of Don Cheadle as War Machine.
Yeah, because Rhodes was previously played by Terrence Howard.
Yeah,
who didn't come back.
I'm not a huge fan of Terrence Howard. I wasn't disappointed that Terrence Howard didn't come back. I never really liked Terrence Howard.
Oh, see, back in 2010, I was actually kind of shocked that they recast him. Where it's like, wait a minute, that's not Rhodey. But I was about like, when did Iron Man 2 come out? Was that 2010?
2010, yeah.
So I was going on 14 at the time. So yeah.
Yeah, apparently the way the contracts were written up, because Terrence Howard was the first one to sign for Iron Man, they signed him for Iron Man before they had the role of Iron Man cast. And apparently the way the contracts were written up, Terrence Howard, if I'm remembering this correctly, made more money on Iron Man than Robert Downey Jr. did.
Okay.
Because Robert Downey Jr. was considered an insurance risk in those days, because he had such a cocaine problem, and he'd been in rehab so many times. So I think because he was an insurance risk and Terrence Howard was kind of hot at the time, he actually made more money. So when the sequel came around, Terrence Howard was going to get a raise and was going to be making, because everyone was going to get a raise for the sequel. Everyone was getting their pay bumped up. And it got to a point where they were like, why are we paying Rhodey more than we're paying Robert Downey Jr.? We're paying the sidekick more than we're paying Iron Man. So I think they tried to renegotiate the contract to bring him in at a lower rate. And he said, no, this is what you agreed to. And they were like, okay, then we don't want you.
And I feel this also needs to be brought up. This is the last Marvel movie that Jon Favreau directed.
Yeah.
He did both Iron Man and Iron Man 2. Because one of my favorite scenes from Iron Man 2, I don't mean to jump around, but I have to say it while I'm thinking about it, otherwise I'll forget it. Remember Rhodey, where it's like, hold on, I'll hit him with the ex-wife. And they shoot out the bullet, just dink.
Yeah.
You should have heard that theater where I was at. Everybody was just going, oh. Yeah, that theater was not quiet. Even the women were laughing, which was funny.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's go ahead and let's move on to our number 7. That's Avengers Infinity War. Now, this is the one where we actually have the biggest disparity, because I ranked this at number 19. You ranked this as your second favorite.
Yeah, I feel that Infinity War and Endgame were just game changers. I just feel like they really. I don't think we ever saw anything like them before. They took 20 movies and brought it all together in a way that I don't think should have worked. I mean, it's almost an impossible task. How do you do that? And I don't know. These movies, they feel big. They feel epic. They feel like you get actual payoff. Like it all feels so earned because it's been earned over a decade. Yeah, I really, really liked, and it's kind of hard for me to separate them, but yeah, no, I love this movie. I think it's one of the best superhero movies ever made.
Okay. Because yeah, I have a much different stance on this than you do, because I actually feel that this movie is way too big for its own good, and you're trying to follow too many events that are all happening at the same time. Because in one aspect, you have Iron Man and Spider-Man going up on the spaceship that eventually leads to Titan, where they fight Thanos. Then you have the invasion of Wakanda storyline, which should have been in Black Panther. And then you have the other one where you have Thor trying to craft, this hammer and come back down to beat Thanos.
See, I think it all works. I don't think it would work if we hadn't had 20 films of build-up. If you had to stop and introduce every character, if you had to tell us this is who this is, and this is who this is, and this is, it would not have worked. I think the fact that the groundwork had been laid in all these other movies kind of puts you in a position where they're like, all right, full speed ahead. If you don't know who these guys are yet, sorry, we're we're here, we're doing it, and this is it. And I don't know. I thought it was a pretty amazing experience. And then the 1 year wait, the wait to see how it was going to tie up. It's like, oh my, it was painful and delicious all at the same time.
See, I wish that Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel didn't come out when they did. Because imagine like that wait between Infinity War and you have to wait an entire year with no Marvel movies to just speculate what's going to happen in Endgame.
I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool how I think it worked. I think it really worked. I liked how it seemed like Ant-Man and the Wasp was completely unrelated. When we watched the movie, it's like, oh, this is completely unrelated. But then when we get to the end credit scene in Ant-Man and the Wasp and we see the dust, we knew what it meant. And we knew exactly, and it was like, oh crap! That's why he wasn't in Infinity War. He was elsewhere while that was going on, and it was just like it catches us up. I don't know. I thought it was, and then we obviously saw him send the distress call to Captain Marvel. We never saw Captain Marvel before, and then it's like, oh, by the way, here's who that is. We haven't told you that story yet. And then we get the post-credit scene with where we go back to the pager, and now she shows up. Where's Fury? I don't know. I thought it was kind of a cool way to keep the train running, but at the same time, not disrupt the continuity that they'd created. I don't know. I liked how it was crafted.
And I'm going to go back to an old point here because I said the comment about Civil War, how in all the other movies it just it didn't really show the impact, but I forgot about Ant-Man and the Wasp in that very beginning when he's on ankle monitoring and they have to try to work to get him off of it so that he could be Ant-Man. So so there you go, the one movie that actually acknowledged the events of Civil War. So yeah. Had to say that before I forgot. So going back to Infinity War, I feel like, talk about the two character deaths. That was Gamora and Loki. I'm sorry, but the Loki death did absolutely nothing for me in this movie. Because like I said before, this is now the third time he's died. And, and notice how in the movie they have to keep bringing up, oh yeah, I think he's really dead now. Oh yeah, do you think he's dead? Oh, he's definitely down and out for the count now. Because they killed him off so many times prior. That's like, okay.
I think that's where we are with Loki now, though. I think Loki's one of those characters who's just never, ever, ever going to die. But I think they can milk this for the next 10 years and keep making it look like he's dead. And now it's a gag.
Yeah. Yeah, because that new Loki series isn't even following the events of Infinity War Endgame. It's following when he gets the Tesseract back in Endgame and goes back to Asgard. So it's now in an alternate timeline.
Right.
So that's how they're going to write that off when that show comes out. And going back to Gamora's death, I felt that her death was a result of a plot convenience that her and what's her sister's name? Is that Nebula?
Nebula, yeah.
Yeah, her and Nebula like just happen to know where the Soul Stone is, and it isn't brought up until Infinity War, and then they just then Thanos forces him to go there, and he throws Gamora off the side of a cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah, why wouldn't he throw Nebula off the side of the cliff?
I don't think
because
he loved
Nebula's the one that betrayed him.
I don't think he loved Nebula. Didn't it have to? You had to sacrifice what you love the most. So
yeah, but then that doesn't even make sense in Endgame because Black Widow basically threw herself off.
Yeah, I actually had talked about that with my wife. We did a video on that's not there anymore. for reasons. There's a whole thing. But we did a video where we talked about the Soul Stone because that was I was saying, how could you throw yourself off if you have to sacrifice something you love? I don't know that would work, but I don't know. And then what happens when Steve Rogers goes and returns the stone after Endgame? Does he get a return on his deposit?
So I mean, I don't think we can talk. I don't think we can talk Infinity War without talking Thanos. What did you think of his motivations?
Well, he's a good villain because he has pure motives in his mind. What he's doing makes perfect sense to him. He doesn't think he's the bad guy. He thinks he's the hero, So
yeah,
hey,
that's a good trait for a villain.
Yeah,
but I mean, I want to get into this a little bit. I feel that his motives are illogical. I understand that, like, you want to wipe out half the universe because of the overpopulation theory, and you want to snap half the universe away. The problem is, just give it a few decades, and the population's going to be right back to where it was when you first snapped. So,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what where you go then.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't
Because
think it out
we
that
find
far.
out because we found out, because then in Endgame he destroys the stones, and it's like, okay, then what did you even do the snap for? If you're going to have to redo that every few decades just
Well,
to keep the
maybe
population under control.
we just saw people disintegrate. We saw people. Maybe we think that's the extent of what he did. Maybe the snap disintegrated half the people and made half of the survivors sterile, so they can't reproduce anymore.
I mean, I'll take anything at this point. But one last thing I want to bring up about Infinity War. I love Peter Dinklage as that giant troll.
Yeah, he was very entertaining.
He's like 20 feet tall. It's like, yeah, okay. Meanwhile, in real life, it's like, here's Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, and we talked about Days of Future Past. He was in that too.
Yeah, as the head of that the Sentinel project.
Trask, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, ready to move on to number 6?
I am.
All right, number 6 is the first Iron Man. You rank this at 17. I rank this at number 3.
Okay. Yeah, the one that started it all.
Mm-hmm.
It's my least favorite of the Iron Mans. I enjoyed it, but I thought the ending was too quick paced. Like, as soon as Ironmonger got in his Ironmonger suit, I felt like he was dispatched almost immediately. I actually think if you watch the first Fantastic Four movie from 2005 and you watch Iron Man, the speed at which the Fantastic Four takes out Doctor Doom at the end and the speed at which Iron Man takes out Ironmonger, I think they're actually very similar endings. So I feel like it's a good movie that kind of craps out at the end, because I don't think the ending's very good, really, the final battle with Ironmonger. But also it's heavy originitis, a lot in the caves and a lot of tinkering and trying out different armors. It's a great movie. It's obviously the one that started it all, but I thought they, especially where the villains are concerned, I thought they improved as they went along.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say this, this is where like Marvel's villain problem started, but I think I ultimately forgive it because it's like, okay, this is the first movie in the series and they're, kind of, you have to tinker it somewhere. You're not going to get it, right on the money the first time.
Right.
And I'll admit, this is actually the movie that I've actually seen the most amount of times. And, this one to me, total rose-tinted glasses, because like I brought up, I was in the 5th grade when this came out, and this was the first PG-13 movie I could actually go see in the theater. So I do have more of an emotional attachment to Iron Man. So, at least I'm willing to be intellectually honest here.
Yeah, I could see that.
Maybe it's not, the best movie, but the emotional attachment for me outweighs all of the cons that this movie presents.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, and it's the last movie where I can understand Jeff Bridges. Have you seen him in True Grit?
Yeah.
Now you listen here, Dad Pepper. That man should never take on a role that requires a drawl. Because you're going to have to turn on the subtitles for 90% of that movie. You doing all right?
Yeah, just starting to fade.
All right, so now we're on our top 5. We'll get to these a little more. We'll get through these a little more quickly. Number 5 is Thor. I ranked this at 7. You ranked it at 8.
Yes. It is my second favorite solo film, solo hero, non-team up. My favorite, I said, was The Winter Soldier. I really loved this movie. This movie was just an eye-opener for me when I first saw it, because I'll tell you, as a comic book collector growing up, I think I read at some point in time a comic book of every major character. I regularly collected Batman. I regularly collected Superman. I regularly collected Spider-Man. But maybe while I didn't regularly collect Captain America, I picked it up for a while here and there. I picked up all the major characters. I picked them up at some point in time. Thor, I think, is the one character I never, ever, ever once picked up a Thor comic book. I mean, he might have been in a comic I read. He might have been in an Avengers story or something, but I never picked up a dedicated Thor book, ever. So Thor was always kind of that big stiff who talked the cheesy old English, and I just wasn't into Thor. But I went and saw the movie, and holy jeez, I loved this movie. It was so funny. I just, Chris Hemsworth was cracking me up in the role. I thought he was so good in the part. Loki was hysterical. And the movie, I can't put and I'm not the only one to say this. My friend Dave Perillo, who does the Lunchbox Bunch videos with me, he said the same thing. Neither one of us can put our finger on what it is. I can't point to a certain thing and say, this is it. This is what does it. But there's something about the tone and feel of this movie that reminds me of the first Christopher Reeve Superman,
Okay.
which I think is one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. So I get very much the same vibe from Christopher Reeve's Superman as I get from this movie. And yeah, I love it. I still think it's the best Thor movie, and it's next to Winter Soldier. It's my second favorite of the Marvel non-team up movies.
Yeah. Well, what I would say about Thor is, you could effectively say that this is the only non-superhero movie in a superhero franchise. Because what are you going to do for Thor? Thor's not a superhero. He's a Norse god.
Right.
And so, with this movie, I got more of a prodigal son type of feel. Are you familiar with the story of the prodigal son?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go into it for, in case if someone out there doesn't know what it is, where, Thor and Loki are basically the same character when they take on the ice giants. And so as a result, Odin must punish him and banish him from the kingdom, take away his powers, and send down the hammer until he has proven himself worthy and he's let back into the kingdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which also leads into why Loki was considered, one of the best villains of this, MCU superhero franchise. Because if you look at this movie, it's not like Loki wanted to take over the throne of Asgard. He just wanted to be recognized by his father because he was the adopted son.
Yeah.
So Thor would always outshine him in front of Odin. And now that Odin got rid of Thor, now Loki can have all of his attention.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, and this one probably had the most emotional ending at the very end when Thor has to destroy the bridge to prevent Loki from carrying out his plans going down onto Earth. And what do you want to do again? Didn't he want to enslave all the people?
Oh, geez. Yeah, I think so. Didn't he wanted to rule Earth, right? Because he wanted to be, because he couldn't be the ruler of Asgard. So
because he wasn't a firstborn son to Odin.
right.
So so Thor had to destroy the bridge with the thought of, I may never see Jane Foster again. The love interest built up throughout.
Right. Which, of course, did make it a little ridiculous when he went back for Avengers that he never even
Yeah.
looked her up. But
Well, another problem with the Avengers is how did he get back down to Earth if the bridge between Earth and Asgard was destroyed?
turns out the bridge wasn't that important after all, apparently.
Yeah. No, Idris Elba's Heimdall can just, boom, shoot him down there. Aye. Yeah, so moving on to Avengers number 4, because we've been going for quite a long time. Avengers Endgame. I rank this at number 12. You rank this as your favorite, number 1.
Yeah, same reasons I gave for Infinity War. I just thought these movies we've never seen anything like them before. And Avengers Endgame was the last chance to bomb out. It was the last chance to drop the ball and show that they didn't have what it takes to pull it all together, and they did not do it. They successfully brought this series to a close with an emotional ending. I think we were all pretty broken up by the fates of both Natasha and Tony. Did anyone else die in this movie that I'm forgetting? I think that's it, right?
Who'd you say again? Natasha Romanoff, Tony Stark died.
Yeah.
Could we consider Steve Rogers because he grew into an old man?
I mean, he's not going to be an Avenger anymore, I guess, but he's still there. Yeah. He's still alive. He could show up and give him advice. He could be their Alfred.
Yeah. Because I would say the thing that I liked, with Endgame over Infinity War is now we get back to like a small group, more focused on that original Avengers.
Right.
And how they utilized the quantum realm with time travel was pretty funny. Yeah, where'd you get your time travel education from? Back to the Future?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The whole thing with turning Ant-Man into a little kid and everything. And the Hulk, man. Hulk was so great in this, where we finally get this Hulk. It was just really well done.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'm going to bring up that I think is a big, not red flag, but a big criticism of mine is Thanos' logic in Infinity War, in my opinion, was illogical, but this one outright makes him look stupid. Where instead of just wiping out half the universe, now he wants to blow everything up and, start from scratch, where he's not going to be in this next universe, but, pray and hope to God that the same problems don't happen yet again.
Right. I think at that point he was just becoming more and more unhinged, though.
Yeah, more and more of a narcissist, just like, yeah, I want to kill everything off now.
It was like, oh, you foiled my plans? Okay, well, guess what? Now you've had it. Now I'm just going to kill everybody.
Yeah, but I did like the way that this series actually concluded both Iron Man's story and Captain America's story as well. Where they have Captain America go back to Peggy Carter, which is what he wanted all along. Because he was at her funeral in, was it Winter Soldier?
Yeah.
Yeah, so now he could finally go back to, late 40s and grow old with her. So, yeah, the time travel logic between, where'd you get yours from? Back to the Future? The old man Steve Rogers shouldn't have shown up on the bench, but I wrote that off as, hey, we need to close off Captain America, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I thought it was really well done. It just... I mean, there's a few cheats in there, like we get alternate universe Loki and alternate universe Gamora. So, hey, guess what? Loki and Gamora are back. But they're not really back. They're still dead. This is just alternate dimension versions of them. So it's a cheat. But you know what? We lost Iron Man. We lost Natasha. They're, of course, alternate universe Natasha and Iron Man could show up because why not? We've done it already with Gamora. So,
yeah. So, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, are we going to reintroduce Gamora? Because the Gamora we see in Endgame is not the same Gamora as in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, well, I mean,
she had already left Thanos.
Yeah, when we left them off, they were looking for her. So I guess that's what part of what Guardians 3 is going to be, is tracking down Gamora.
Yeah. Yeah, so ready to get to number 3?
Sure.
Number 3, The Avengers. I rank this at 4. You rank this at 7.
Yeah. Again, this is a game changer. This is the first time we saw a team up movie like this. I mean, other than your I mean, we've had movies in the past like, I don't know, Freddy versus Jason or Predator versus Aliens. You know, we've seen two franchises cross over before, but never before have we seen like, what was it, four, five different, just Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, and Thor. Yeah, four different franchises combined into one. I don't think that's ever been done before. Maybe.
Well, I will say this: the Universal monster movies did this back in the 30s and 40s. I think with
Yeah,
House of M.
that's what I was just
Not
about to
not how
say.
not
House of Frankenstein. Yeah,
yeah, that's
that's
what it is. House of Frankenstein, not House of M. House of M is something completely different.
or maybe like Destroy All Monsters, where like all the Godzilla creatures came together. I don't,
Yeah. Yeah, so nothing new here was done, but it revitalized that, type of a franchise structure where, you could have a bunch of individual movies all lead up to one big crossover and
yeah,
crossover. So you could effectively say that The Avengers is a plotless movie since all the groundwork was done in those first, was it 5 movies? Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2. Yeah, Captain America, Thor at 5.
that's true. It really feels to me like it's a sequel to Thor, though. Like it feels
Yeah.
like Avengers is more Thor 2 than Thor the Dark World is because
Mhm.
it's following up on Loki's story. I mean, we see the end credits of Thor where Loki sees the Tesseract and it's like, that's
Yep.
something worth looking into. And it feels like this movie's just picking up right where Thor left off. So even though all the other characters are coming in, I do think it feels very much like a Thor sequel.
Yeah. And this is where Hawkeye was first introduced.
Yeah, well, no, it's not true. Hawkeye was
Really?
first introduced in Thor.
When?
He was when Shield had built that structure around Thor's hammer, and Thor had to break in to get his hammer back, but he wasn't worthy. He couldn't pick it up. Um, Hawkeye was one of the Shield agents in there, and yeah, he was.
Was he on top of a tower and holding like his bow down
Yes,
on the
yes,
Thor? Okay. Yeah. So, whoops, I'm not going to edit this out. So, but also this movie did make Black Widow the household name. Yeah, she was
yeah.
introduced in Iron Man 2, but she wasn't really shown off until the Avengers.
I don't, and I accredit that to Joss Whedon. Joss Whedon has
Yes.
always had a real talent for writing uh, women who kick ass.
Mm-hmm.
This was the buffification of Black Widow, and you see it right away in the opening scene with the where she's being held hostage supposedly, but
Yeah.
she's actually in control of the situation. The dialogue in that scene is so Joss Whedon, and it's just golden.
You just said that Joss Whedon writes women who could kick ass. What I would have loved to see after Black Widow kicks everyone's ass in that one, reach your report and go, ah, damn, no more bubble gum. I know some people will get that reference.
I got it.
Uh huh. Yeah. Obey. Yeah. Well, I always say that the
David Keith
Avengers
was
was
in that movie.
what?
David Keith was in that movie.
Keith David.
Or Keith David. I always get David Keith and Keith David mixed up. There's got to. I bet David Keith and Keith David's friends get the two of them mixed up, even though they couldn't
Yeah.
be more different. But
Yeah.
no, Keith David though went on to be on. I was going to segue this. Keith David was in that movie, and then he went on to be on Community. See, I keep
Oh.
bringing it back to Community.
See, we were talking about superheroes, and I automatically thought of Spawn. He was the voice of the Spawn series on HBO.
Oh, I forgot about the Spawn series. I used to watch it,
Yeah.
but it's been a while.
Hmm. Yeah, but getting back to the Avengers, I've always said that this movie was the best and worst thing to ever happen to the MCU. The best thing being is that, this cinematic universe structure can work, but after this, every single Marvel movie had to have the humor, even if it was misplaced. And like you said with Thor, yeah, Thor was very funny, but I always got, the humor was in the context because he obviously comes from Asgard and on Earth. He walks into the pet store, give me a horse, and he doesn't understand that like pet stores don't have horses kind of thing.
Right.
So that was the man out of place humor. But after this, it was fight, 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 mid punch. Oh, funny one liner, right back to the fight.
I don't know. That never bothered me. In fact, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of part of the Marvel blueprint.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's just later on it just kind of it really started like grate on my nerves because like you have this really tense action scene and edge of your seat, then takes you out with a joke, and then because once you get off that edge, it's pretty hard to start getting back to it.
I don't know. I'll have to think about that next time I'm watching one of these movies. But I never really, I never personally got that vibe from them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so let's go ahead and move on to our number two. Number two, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I rank this at 2, and you rank this at 3.
Yeah, love this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I love this movie. Again, I think it's even better than the first one. I think it's got one of the best villains in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe in Ego. Just a loathsome. When you find out, I don't know, I guess we're doing spoilers here. When you find out that he killed Peter's mother, it's just like, oh my God, really? It's just, you just instantly hate the guy. Um, Yondu, he was terrific in this movie. I mean, the first one, he's entertaining in the first one. He's good. He's good in the first one, but he's not great. This one, when they really delve into his relationship with Peter Quill and how he was the one who raised him and how he basically saved his life because he didn't deliver him the ego, he just becomes such a more sympathetic character. And when he dies, it hurts you. You don't want him to go.
Yes.
It's
yeah, and it was after that line, he may be your father, but that doesn't make him your daddy.
Yeah.
And he gives Peter his only respirator.
Yeah. I love this movie. I love this movie.
I love the opening with Baby Groot and they're playing Mr. Blue Sky as they're fighting that giant alien.
Yeah. And Sylvester Stallone. Stallone's I'm being visited by my cat. Hello, Jules. His cameo was great. His little role in there.
Yeah, see, I was a fan of 90s action movies, so I automatically thought of Cliffhanger when Stallone and Yondu reconnect, because it's like, oh hey, like Cliffhanger, except Yondu's not holding him over the edge of a cliff. I don't know. Have you ever seen Cliffhanger?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're remaking that movie. Which why?
Huh? I didn't hear that. I didn't know that was getting a remake.
Oh, yeah. I heard rumblings of it. I think it's only in pre-production, so it could not come out.
I wonder if that's going to be one of those fake remakes, though. What I mean by
like
when it's like it's actually a sequel. And we acknowledge that the first one happened, and we bring back a couple actors from the first one, but we don't call it part 2. So it's like we try to sell it to the audience as like it's something new, but I don't know. It's like Flatliners just did that a couple of years ago. Flatliners, it's like, oh, it's a remake of Flatliners. Oh, nope. Kiefer Sutherland's there, so it's not actually a remake.
well, Flatliners was kind of weird because Kiefer Sutherland did not come back as his character from the 1990 movie.
He actually was. He was the same character. Apparently, he changed his name, and there was a deleted scene where they reveal that, and then they apparently cut the scene. But apparently, he was like came back under like an assumed name.
So let's cut the scene that will say that this will make it a definitive sequel and just cause even more confusion.
Exactly.
At first, it's like, okay, it's a remake. It's like, okay, I mean, the original's a cult favorite, but it didn't really do well back in the 90s. And then now it's a reboot. It's like, okay, now it's a sequel. How the hell are you going to do a sequel to Flatliners?
Yeah, it's and another example is the new Halloween. They called it Halloween. They didn't call it
Yeah.
Halloween 8 or Halloween. It's just called Halloween. But
Hmm.
but Laurie Strode's back and it's 20 years. So I call them the fake remake. It's like, oh, we're gonna sell it like it's a remake, but really we're acknowledging the previous film as well.
Yeah, and I watched your video on it like a couple years ago when you talked about how now this is like the fourth timeline in the Halloween series.
Yeah, the one thing I did enjoy, because I kept joking around that it was Back to the Future, like when Doc had the in
Yeah.
Back to the Future 2, when Doc had the timeline on the chalkboard, and he's like, "Yeah, when we came back here, it created an alternate." I kept saying that's what it was, and then we got a scene in the new Halloween where somebody's playing a Back to the Future Part 2 pinball machine, and I was like, "All right, I got to tip my hat to them. They just acknowledged it.
Yeah.
They just winked at the audience and said, "Yeah, we know."
uh, yeah. So let's go ahead and wrap up this list with our number one. It should be pretty obvious. Guardians of the Galaxy. You ranked this at number 4. I ranked it as my favorite number 1.
Yeah, it's a good one. It
Hmm.
is. Yeah, I love this movie. I like the second one a little better. I think that's a lot of that has to do with the villain. I really liked Ego. I think Ego kind of put the second one over the top for me. But this one is pretty spectacular too.
Yeah.
Dance
And
off at
what
the
I
end. My God, that's amazing.
well, what I was going to say is that with this cinematic universe, you could effectively say that this is a completely standalone movie. You could not watch any of the other MCU movies and be just fine.
That's true, and it's the same with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 as well.
Yep.
Until Infinity War, when the Guardians find Thor, they really have
Hmm.
no connection at all to anything going on, aside from the fact that they have connections to Thanos.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Hmm. And one thing that I wanted to bring up, because I know you would appreciate this, I know you're a fan of Farscape and the Jim Henson Company.
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
is probably this is probably like the closest thing to a Farscape movie that we're ever going to get. Because if you think about it, Peter Quill is the only human
Yeah,
in a world full of aliens trapped on a ship, except he's not trying to get back to Earth.
yeah, I could see that. I could see
Because
that.
I think because I
When Star Trek Beyond came out, there were rumors that Paramount was telling them to make it more like Guardians of the Galaxy.
mm-hmm,
And I got thinking, you could do that. Uh, you could introduce a gang of characters like the Guardians of the Galaxy and just give them their own spin-off series. And it's like, oh, here are these other guys that just happen to be traveling around the universe too.
mm-hmm.
Who
Yeah,
knew?
because what I was gonna say is I read an interview with James Gunn back in like 2014 or 2015. He was saying that like Farscape was one of the biggest inspirations for Guardians of the Galaxy, at least the first movie.
I could definitely
Because
see that.
I also forgot the aliens are also convicts because they break out of that prison.
Yes, that's right.
So yeah, so I think that pretty much wraps up our ranking.
We
So what
we
I'm
we,
gonna
sh- we should also point out real quick though that Guardians of the Galaxy was probably the biggest risk that the Marvel
yes.
Universe had up till then because most people did not know who the Guardians of the Galaxy were.
Mm-hmm.
Who were they? They were fairly obscure, and it was proof that Kevin Feige knows what he's doing. You can take the most obscure character around, and if the script's good and the story's good, you can sell it. There's no character that you could say, oh, we should make a movie about the Metal Men. Oh, nobody knows who the Metal Men are. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the quality is there. The people are gonna see the movie.
Mm-hmm. Because one thing I was also going to say is that this movie made Rocket Raccoon extremely popular. And if you remember in the comic book world, Rocket Raccoon was always like a dump bin, like Z-list type character. But all of a sudden, after this movie came out, oh, everyone's got to get Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah, I know we're kind of way off of Iron Man, but one thing I forgot to mention about Iron Man is I remember comics in the 90s, the 80s and the 90s. I grew up, in collecting comics in the 80s and 90s. Iron Man was C-list at best.
Yeah.
At best. If Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, if they were the A-list, and then you said, okay, well, who are your B-list characters? Then I think it would be like your guys like Thor. Iron Man was at best a C-lister, maybe even a D-lister. He's now one of the most popular superheroes there is. That's all because of the 2008 movie. That movie put Iron Man where he is today.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true, because you could even argue that with the Blade movies. Blade was a nobody character, not even Z-list, until Wesley Snipes got behind it, and then all of a sudden he just exploded in popularity.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember in the early 90s, every time they were making a Batman sequel, I'd hear people say like, oh, I hear Scarecrow's going to be the villain in the next Batman movie. And people would say, no, Scarecrow's not going to be the villain. Nobody knows who Scarecrow is. They wouldn't put him in. They're going to use a name villain. And the thing I always pointed out is what makes a villain a name villain? Media exposure. Yep. Everybody knows the Joker, the Riddler, the Catwoman, and the Penguin because they were on the 60s TV series. That's why everyone knows them, because they were on with Adam West. As soon as you put Scarecrow in a movie, everyone's going to know who Scarecrow is. And then guess what? He was in Batman Begins. Everyone now knows who Scarecrow is. That's how these characters get exposed. It's not through the comics, because, nerdy guys like you and me read the comics. The average guy on the street isn't going down to the comic book store. They know these characters because they saw the movie or a TV show.
Yeah. And one thing I feel like needs to be brought up about Guardians of the Galaxy is in the movie version, they actually used the characters from the 2008 reboot, if you remember that.
Yes.
It was kind of a quiet release. It didn't really sell well, so it was quietly canceled. And then once the movie came out, it revitalized the Guardians of the Galaxy, because they were basically the intergalactic Avengers. The members would get exchanged out all the time.
Yeah. Apparently Stan Lee wasn't even familiar with most of those characters because he had already stepped down as chairman by 2008. So when I remember reading interviews with him, and he's like, yeah, I don't really know those guys. They came in after my tenure.
Yeah.
I'll cameo in their movie, but I don't know who they are.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess that pretty much wraps it up for our MCU ranking after almost 3 hours.
Yes.
So if you don't mind, I'm going to go through a really quick listing again, just what the Universal list was.
Okay.
So for people who stuck around this long, as a refresher, number 23 was Thor: The Dark World. Number 22 was Black Panther. Number 21, Spider-Man: Homecoming. Then Avengers: Age of Ultron 20. Number 19 was Ant-Man. Number 18 was Spider-Man: Far From Home. Number 17 was Doctor Strange. Number 16 was Captain Marvel. Number 15 was Ant-Man and the Wasp. 14 was Captain America: First Avenger. 13 was Iron Man 3. 12 was Captain America: Civil War. 11 was The Incredible Hulk. 10 was Captain America: The Winter Soldier. 9 was Thor: Ragnarok. 8 was Iron Man 2. 7 was Avengers: Infinity War. 6 was Iron Man. 5 was Thor. 4 was Avengers: Endgame. 3 was The Avengers. 2 was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And at number 1, Guardians of the Galaxy. So, Joe, at this point, I'd like to thank you for coming on and helping me with this ranking.
Oh, absolutely. It was a lot of fun. I'm being harassed by a cat right now.
Yeah, sorry, man. I didn't intend to keep you for 3 hours, but we were going off on all these different tangents, and I'm actually a fan of the type of content where it starts off as like a ranking, but then the conversation can just kind of go anywhere.
Yeah, that's always fun because you never know where it's going to lead you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'd just like to make a quick announcement that the PDF of my presentation files will be available on the blog, MetrObeliskRadio.blogspot.com, where you can see the Universal list, my personal ranking of the MCU, and Krazy Joe's personal ranking of the MCU. So, Krazy Joe, would you like to plug anything before I let you go?
Oh, find me the usual places, MegaPodTastic.com and YouTube.com/MegaPodTastic. We got a podcast that drops every Friday, and you can get that wherever you get your podcasts, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. We're on Alexa. All you got to do is say, Alexa, play MegaPodTastic Podcast, and Alexa will play it for you. It's that simple. and then the YouTube gets several videos a week, live stream every Tuesday night.
Yep, where you can also find me in the live streams, and you can find my stream ending jokes, as Krazy Joe can attest to, every time I show up. And I didn't have the time to look up a Marvel joke for this one, so I can't keep up appearances.
All right, well, I could do one. Do you want me to do a Marvel joke to end it?
Yeah, do an interview ending joke.
All right, I think I did this on my live stream the other night, so you may already know it, but I don't have that many, so what do Daredevil and Scarlet Witch have in common?
What?
They're both Marvel superheroes who dress in red who lost their vision.
Wow. That's a good one. That is a good one. Oh, anyways, guys, yeah, this has been a very fun episode. Obviously from MetrObelisk Radio. Thanks so much for coming on, Krazy Joe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. This concludes the final part of the 3-hour collaboration. Thank you for watching this. This was really fun to do, and I hope that I can do more collaborations with other creators in the future. For those who want it, a supercut of this 3-hour episode will be available tomorrow.